We have an opportunity to do a lot of transformations where you renovate a garden on an existing house, and we want to show you one of those today from the beginning when we started and had a big overgrown yard to almost the end. And we think we know what we're doing, but we're still going to show you several things that have gone wrong here and how we're going to correct them, and some things that we can see might go wrong in the future. So in that way, I think it'll be a really educational video looking at a transformation and looking at problems along the way. So our channel is diverse. We show you landscape design and talk about it in detail, and we talk about gardening and landscaping, and we show you real life examples. Over all of that, we're constantly emphasizing what we think is the most important part: soil. I'm John Valentino, president of John and Bob's Corporation, and I'm a landscape contractor and a landscape architect and a general engineering contractor. And I'm here with Chip Valentino. He's been working with me closely for about the last 3 years. We're proud that our products are safe for kids and pets and really very good in human environments. It makes no sense to me to use toxic products. If you look into the history of landscaping around homes, one of the earlier trends was what was called foundation planting, and that was to cover up ugly foundations. Usually a line of overgrown plants up close to the house. You can see in this house it had foundation planting and other planting that just made it almost impossible to see the house. Now we've evolved into architectural styles and construction styles where houses aren't usually unattractive, an affection for the material and the style of the home. So the first thing we wanted to do here is to reveal the house and reveal the style of it and the architecture of it. And so to open it up, that required removing a lot of plants and then replanting in a style that allows it to be somewhat open, but since it's a west-facing exposure, we still wanted to provide a lot of shade. There's existing trees here that we maintained and pruned close to the street, and then we removed almost everything that was around the house, regraded everything. Then we replanted with this line of river birch. This is a variety called Duraheat birch that I think if you've watched our other videos, we have used on other projects. Nice shade from the western sun, and yet it'll allow light in the winter because it does drop its leaves, and it's pretty well behaved, no root problems. So we've opened up the house, and then we've come up with a style that still provides shade, reveal and celebrate the architecture rather than hide the whole house. So in the design of this, usually what's emphasized, not always, but frequently, is ease of maintenance and something that's easy to care for. Usually people think lawn is a higher maintenance, so we relegated the lawn to the back where their kids will use it, and lawn's functional, so it's important where it's functional. That's really how we like to look at design, is make decisions based on use. And in the front, there's really no need for a lawn other than if you want to add to the maintenance. We want to detract from maintenance. So we came up with a design that features utility, screening the house, and is very easy to care for. So we've got areas of pea gravel on top of decomposed granite, and very simple plantings on drip irrigation. So that's the theme, is low maintenance in the front, no lawn, and very straightforward plantings for the most part. We'll go into a little bit later the specifics of a couple of those plants that might make it not so low maintenance, but that was our goal in the design, is to create a very easy to care for front yard that has a simplicity to it, and it also encourages kind of walking through and sitting on the benches, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So our goal is to make landscaping important in your life and to make your life better with landscaping. And one of the ways is to make the garden as useful as possible. A very useful thing is to grow edible food. So we put up some raised planters. So one sunny portion of the yard is dedicated to these raised vegetable beds. Another is to emphasize spaces that will be used. In the back, there's a pool with a deck. We built a deck under a big existing oak tree, so a very shady spot for gathering. In the front and the back, we made benches out of two different materials. There's several made out of adobe. In the front, it's painted the color to match the house. We used an interesting bench out of metal that we made for the courtyard. All of this is an attempt to kind of have the house spill out into the garden. So this whole, what some people call California style of gardening, where you expand the house out into the garden and make useful spaces and rooms in the garden. So this garden is a reflection of that. We're trying to make it as useful as possible, make it something you walk through to enjoy, make it produce usable food, make it shade your house, have places to sit and talk to people or wait for them to arrive. All in all, useful, low maintenance gardens that improve our everyday lives. In this garden, we thought we'd show you some of those common things that go wrong. They tend to be different on every job, but happen a lot when there's lots of activity. One of the problems that we had here is when we leave and it's a brand new system, valves can malfunction, and in this case, you'll see some plants that apparently the valve stopped working and we weren't aware of it. We had 100-degree days, and so we're going to have to replace them before we leave. Another problem here is this is new sod, so we just put the sod in around the pool. In this case, the owner selected a tall fescue. Two things that are of interest here. One, we're getting nutgrass here and there, and nutgrass is a really problematic weed that plagues a lot of people. It originates from a nut in soil, usually deeper than you know about. Pretty common in lawns, particularly when you water a lot. It seems to proliferate in areas that you overwater. So when you put in new sod, you have to water a lot. In my own yard, I had nutgrass outside of the lawn, and I just patiently dug it out. If you dig it out, you have to go deep and get those little nuts. In a lawn, obviously, you can't do that. There's not a lot of good solutions. There are a couple of products that work reasonably well, but they require reapplication, and they're formulated to not brown out lawns like Bolero Plus, but they might brown the lawn if it's really hot. And so this time of the year, it can be a problem to try to use it. One's called Sedge Hammer. Another that I don't know, I feel I've had a little better success with, both of them are similar in that they need a lot of reapplication, is Dismiss. And Dismiss has worked pretty well for me. And so you spray it on the nut grass, and then you reapply. It really requires a reapplication every couple of weeks, and you can kill it that way, but it takes perseverance and dedication to the task there, and you have to keep reapplying. Another problem is, it's not really a problem, but people ask me about it all the time, and I see it here, so I'll mention it, is when mushrooms come up. And in this case, quite a few have come up here and there. And mushrooms in your lawn don't mean you have a fungus, and it's really not a negative. It's just a little bit of a nuisance, and you just knock them off, throw them away, and move on. It's really just an indication that there's organic matter in the soil. In this case, this sod, Bolero Plus, is grown in soil with a lot of organic matter. So really when I use Bolero Plus, occurrence of mushrooms is pretty common. There's really no way to get rid of them other than to manually or mechanically get rid of them. Another challenge, since we're letting you in on the inside here, is we have this whole band where we used a dwarf New Zealand flax. And you know, New Zealand flax, which is the genus Formium, has had a lot of new introductions in the last 10 years or so, sometimes for color, sometimes for size, and all of them to me seem very sensitive to hot weather and don't do that well in our area. I think we were thinking that this had a lot of shade and dappled light, which it does in some places, and so where we used this band of a very dwarf New Zealand flax is getting more sun, I think, than we envisioned when we first designed it. And it might be that down the road we choose to swap these to something that thrives in this relatively hot spot, where we'll see how they do as we get into the summer. Hopefully we're pleasantly surprised. So once we solve all the problems I just described to you, that I let you in the inside on, we'll solve those problems, and then the most important thing remains healthy soil. And we've made quite a few applications here of our products, mostly blend and penetrate, and we're making this as healthy as possible by infusing it with life. We want complex life in the soil. And that's the theme of our products. If you're interested in that, go to our website. They can be easily purchased there, or just you can learn more about them there at johnandbobs.com. So this week again, we'd like you to name that plant, and we'll show you an interesting one here at this garden. In order to answer, click the link in the comments, and we're going to change it up a little in that we're going to give you an 8-ounce container of Penetrate Liquid Biotiller. It is bacteria, beneficial bacteria, in one container, and the other container is food for the bacteria. You can check out our other videos on garden renovations. We did one where we were able to go right through and not have the kind of interruptions we've had here, which allows it to go a lot smoother.